Hello, it's Clive de Carle here, and I'd like to talk to you about vitamin C today. Now, the reason I'm talking about vitamin C primarily is because of the coronavirus, and if you want to overcome an acute viral issue, then vitamin C in the right dosage at the right frequency works every time. And when I say every time, I mean every time for acute viral infections. Now, the first time that vitamin C was really proven was Dr. Frederick Klenner in 1949. He had 60 patients of his with polio, and he cured every single one of them. By 1951, Dr. Klenner was curing acute flaccid paralysis. He went on to cure smallpox, hepatitis, rabies, tuberculosis. By the 60s, doctors were curing every acute virus that existed. Didn't matter what it was. Dr. Klenner was even curing viral encephalitis when it had become so acute, such a problem, that the patients were in a coma, and he was still getting them back. He was curing measles, mumps, you name it, the whole lot. So is coronavirus going to be any different? You know, the first time I came across vitamin C was about 30 years ago. Somebody I knew got cancer for the second time, and they explained to me that they'd been given a few weeks left to live. They'd already, the first time, the doctors had taken out a kidney, and he told me, well, he didn't have a spare kidney left to give. And he phoned up Linus Pauling, the only person in the world who won the Nobel Prize as an individual twice. And he found Linus Pauling in the phone book, rings him up and says, well, what do I do? I've got cancer, what do I do? And Linus Pauling said, well, it's simple. Just take 35 grams of vitamin C in divided doses throughout the day, and you'll get better. And my friend lived for another 20 years, and when he did eventually die, it wasn't from cancer. So how effective is vitamin C for cancer? Incredibly. But the point is that these days, 35 grams may not nearly be enough, because the viral load that we're facing, the infections that we're facing, the poisoning from pesticides and larvicides and herbicides and fungicides and all that is so much greater than it was. So we're fighting a toxic load that is huge. Now, if we're fighting a toxic load, then we're going to need a lot of vitamin C to overcome it. But the good news is that vitamin C overcomes toxins. It doesn't really matter what it is. It could be mushroom poisoning, and vitamin C has been shown to overcome some of the worst mushroom poisoning in the world. Doesn't matter whether it's chemical poisoning, doesn't matter whether it's a snake bite, a spider bite. Vitamin C detoxifies you. Now, what happens if you're toxically poisoned? Well, for a start, all of us are. So toxic poisoning reduces your ability to have enough vitamin C in your body. In other words, the more toxically poisoned you are, the more your vitamin C is being burnt up by the very fact that you're toxically poisoned. In a similar way, inflammation. I mean, coronary heart disease is generally an inflammatory disease. So the more inflamed you are, the more vitamin C you burn up and the more vitamin C you need. So if you've got a big infection or you've got a serious inflammation going on, maybe that you've run out of your vitamin C completely and you need more. So do we create vitamin C in our bodies? Well, it's generally believed that we don't, and that we have to get it externally. Now, in the old days, when fruits and vegetables were probably growing in the back garden and we just pick them and eat them fresh, all the vitamin C we needed was probably there. But these days, whereas minerals are not depleted by time or heat, vitamins very much are. So if you've got some vegetables or fruits that they've been grown in some other country, maybe stored in a warehouse, shipped around the place, sitting in a supermarket, sitting in your fruit bowl for a while, well, how much vitamin C is left? Well, there may be hardly any. So most of us are vitamin C deficient, and really the best way is to supplement these days, or grow your own food and eat it super fresh. Now, let's look at a coronavirus, and you probably know there are about 500 different coronaviruses, the common cold and the flu being, several of them, but there's H1N1, for instance. But people have recovered from H1N1 using vitamin C. There's a famous case of a New Zealand farmer that Dr. Thomas Levy talks about, who he has his life support disconnected because the doctors feel that's the end, but his relatives managed to persuade the doctors to give him intravenous vitamin C. He comes back to life and lives. Very similar stories, of course, have happened with cancer patients, where the relatives have insisted that IV vitamin C is given and the cancer's gone away. Of course, if you catch it early enough, you don't need IV vitamin C to achieve it. You can use oral doses of vitamin C really quite effectively in many, many cases. And of course, there are a number of types of vitamin C out there, and we'll be covering that in a moment. So vitamin C can overcome measles, mumps, rabies, herpes, smallpox, and so on. Is it going to overcome a common cold or the flu? An H1N1 is related in this department. Coronaviruses are simply colds and flus. And interestingly, it does. Vitamin C can overcome any acute virus. Now, if it's a chronic virus, been going on for a very long time, while vitamin C might help, it may not actually overcome it. But all of us suffering from this current round of the flu, coronavirus, well, it's going to be acute for all of us. So there is every reason to suppose if you get the dose and the frequency of vitamin C right, you'll recover. So what else has vitamin C been proven to overcome? Well, how about dysentery, malaria and leprosy? They good enough for you? So toxic poisoning, all toxins are going to be pro-oxidants. What is vitamin C? It's an antioxidant. When we have oxidative stress, which inflammation, infection will lead to, what is the answer? Well, obviously it's an antioxidant. I mean, it's so simple. So we've got to look at this as a race. Look at the replication rate of a bacteria. Look at the replication rate of a virus. Now, if we realize that it's just a race between us and them, let's say the average bacteria replicates every couple of hours, well, we'd need to treat that bacterial infection maybe every 1 hour to overcome it and win the race. Viruses often are much quicker. Some viruses are slow, some viruses are fast. If the virus is a slow replicator, it may take vitamin C longer to overcome that replication rate. But if it's a fast replicator, and many of the coronaviruses are, then if you were to hit it really often, then you will win the race. So there's a wonderful video on YouTube by Dr. Andrew Saul, who gets viral pneumonia, and he decides to take 2 grams of vitamin C every 6 minutes. Within 3 hours, he's overcome the pneumonia, because if you hit it often enough, that's what can happen. Now, I give consultations where I advise people on how much vitamin C to take and how often to take it, but if that's not possible for you, then there are some brilliant videos on YouTube by, for instance, Dr. Suzanne Humphreys, by Dr. Thomas Levy, who explain about vitamin C, and I've actually got a couple of vitamin C videos on YouTube myself. So vitamin C has been shown to overcome things like HIV, proven to overcome HIV, proven to overcome Lyme in many instances. That's assuming that the Lyme has been correctly diagnosed, and I don't believe that often a diagnosis of Lyme necessarily is Lyme or just Lyme only. So now, what type of vitamin C do you think one should take? Well, if it's a desperate situation, absolutely desperate, you could take any vitamin C you can get your hands on in big doses, but I like primarily powdered, pure, 100% pure, non-GMO vitamin C. Why is this? Because let's say you took high doses in tablet form. Well, those tablets are glued together with stuff, and if you're doing high doses, you might not want high doses of glue. Similarly with capsules, often to run the powder through the encapsulation machine, they often put magnesium stearate in, which is a very slippery substance, and you don't necessarily want huge doses of that either. So pure vitamin C is the way to go. However, 98% of the vitamin C in the world is genetically modified, and clearly you don't want that type. When I first started recommending vitamin C to people, after a while, some years in, people say, well, I'm not getting on with vitamin C like I used to. And I believe that's because they'd switched to the GMO variety, not realizing what they'd done. I mean, it's GMO corn that they extract it from, but the vitamin C that I recommend to my clients, in fact I sell on my website, is non-GMO clearly. And you really want to avoid anything GMO in your entire life, as much as anything, it's totally unproven. The safety, who knows long term, but the safety of vitamin C is absolutely proven. It's fantastic. So one of the most serious infections in the world right now is tuberculosis, probably the #1 viral infection in the world. What overcomes tuberculosis every time if it's acute? Well, vitamin C, I think you guessed that one. So what other types of vitamin C are available? Well, liposomal is a very good one. It's a bit expensive, but liposomal is great. It doesn't upset the tummy in the way that ascorbic acid can, or sodium ascorbate. The type that I sell on my website is actually sodium ascorbate. It tastes a lot better than ascorbic acid, and it's the alkaline version rather than the acidic version. Both are fine, but I personally prefer sodium ascorbate, and most people get on much better with sodium ascorbate than ascorbic acid. So free radical damage, radiation damage, again, vitamin C can overcome those fairly awful problems. Vitamin C is the answer to arteriosclerosis, or at least one of the big answers. It lowers cholesterol. It's a great treatment for liver disease, and importantly, as our cells are what's really, we are our cells, aren't we, to a large degree. So it strengthens the cell membrane, which is fantastically important. So vitamin C is also, in many cases, a superb antibacterial agent. So I think everybody needs to take vitamin C. I started taking it about 12 years ago on a regular basis, and I generally take somewhere between a minimum of 5 grams and 10 grams a day. And after a few months, when I first started, my eyesight improved. My eyesight improved so much that my ophthalmologist was quite surprised, because I could read one line lower on the chart than I could 3 months earlier. So a really wonderful, wonderful supplement, and I really recommend it. So I hope this information's been useful. I've just scratched the surface of what vitamin C can actually do. If you read Dr. Levy's Curing the Incurable book, or you watch the videos that I mentioned, I think you'll be amazed, and you're going to have to ask yourself, why aren't the doctors taught this in medical school? And I think the reason is that a patient cured is a customer lost, and I'm sorry, but for a doctor not to know the value of vitamin C, I think is criminal. Just simply criminal, and for the medical schools not to teach it is equally criminal. So please send this video to everybody, explain to everybody you meet not to be scared of a simple virus. We're full of viruses, most of our DNA is made up of viral material. Bacteria, viruses, and us, we have a symbiotic relationship. So viruses are not scary. The thing that's scary are whether your immune system is strong. If your immune system isn't strong, well, that's a scary thing. And the other scary thing, of course, is governments, followed closely by fear. The fear virus is the one that might kill you. So I recommend vitamin C to everybody. It's safe for children. It's safe no matter how young you are. Of course, you've got to get the dose right. So I'll be putting out more videos in the future, and I will interview some vitamin C experts who will be able to explain in depth what you need to know. But the basic information is right here. So thank you very much for watching. Speak to you soon.